The Moon EX challenge stage is by far the most challenging and difficult content to have ever graced the global server of Touhou LostWord. Today, we're going to be going over the information that you need to tackle this monster of a stage. Welcome to the Touhou LostWord Moon EX guide. First, let's cover what we're going to be talking about in the video. It's going to be a long video, so feel free to skip to whatever section you want. We'll first be discussing the mechanics of the fight. Following that, we'll hit some concepts for team building and good units that you can use for the stage. Finally, we'll demonstrate with some example clears using various units and setups. We'll start by going over the mechanics of the fight. There are 3 enemies, each with 7 barrier, and all being weak to only Moon, and resisting every other element. The big one is Iku, who has 1.5 million HP, 3 phases, and rotates between her spell cards. She has a variety of defensive skills, and her attacks deal Earth, Moon, and Sun damage. Her attack pattern is as follows. She has a single target Moon attack, an AoE Sun attack. Her first spell card, the Drill, is a single target Moon and Sun attack. Her second spell card, the Disco, is an Earth and Moon AoE attack. And her last word, the Big Disco, is 6 ticks of AoE Earth damage. Next, we're going to be talking about the rabbits. Each of the rabbits have the same amount of health and the same resistances. One of the rabbits is able to heal the others for 5%, and each of them have different effects for sealing whenever they get phased. They only have one attack, which is the AoE Banui Blast. That covers it for the mechanics of the fight. All this information can be found at the Gamepress website. Please go check them out for additional information and tips. Next, we're going to be discussing friends and the different team building ideas that you can do. The first thing that you're going to need is some break, and 49 of it. The next important part is damage, which is probably going to be the hardest part for you to achieve. Optionally, you may want a tank, depending if you plan to take longer, or perhaps to help you get through the second phase of the fight. A lot of characters fill multiple roles, so let's get right into it. The first thing we'll be going over is breaks. For this section, we're mostly going to be going over regular prayer units that can be used to achieve the break number. Some of these characters are capable of doing a lot of damage, and there are a lot of characters capable of doing a ton of breaking that will instead be shown in the damage section. In general, the units here are just cheap access that you can use to supplement breaks. But at the end of the day, you are able to build your own team in whatever way works best for you, so don't feel as if I'm stating that these characters have to be used in the manner that I'm listing here. The first character is Rin. She has access to a ton of Moon in her spell cards, and most importantly, she has Moon on her unboosted spread shot. She has defense debuffs too, so you can't go wrong with her. Next is Reisen. She has access to a ton of single target Moon breaks across all her spells, and even her unboosted focus shot. Furthermore, she can even break status effects, so if she's paired with someone who has them, her break potential is even higher. So give her some accuracy and spirit power, and she'll be a very strong choice. Next we have Clown Piece. She was a free unit for everybody, which should make her pretty accessible. Furthermore, she's capable of helping with a lot of damage. She'll need some spirit power to fuel her Moon breaks, but she's a good choice for those who don't have a ton of units. In a similar spirit, we have Luna. She has access to a lot of Moon across her kit, and with some setup, she's capable of doing a large amount of damage. I'm sure everyone has a lot of her, so if you need the Moon, then consider using her. Now, we can't talk about breaking without talking about medicine. Nearly everything she does inflicts poison, which she can break herself with her last word, or can be broken if she's paired up with Minoriko, giving access to tons of breaks. Just be careful, because Iku's second spell card heals the poison, so just be aware of when that's about to happen. Let's move on to the options for damage. Most of these units are limited characters, but I put a lot of options to give you guys ideas. Even if you don't have any of them, the bottom line is that anybody with a lot of damage, and preferably an AoE last word, should be able to fill this role. First, we'll consider Youmu. If you're doing this for the first time and you don't have a ton of units, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to be using her. She does a ton of damage and is capable of taking out phase with some setup. She's a general pool unit, so hopefully you have her. Now, someone who functions almost identically is A7 Youmu. Both the Youmus have Moon on their AoE last word, which allows them to fulfill the damage needed for a phase, and maybe even a little bit of break. A7 Youmu is particularly very strong, so you won't have to struggle too much if you have her. Iku can do a ton of damage, has access to some Moon, and is capable of manipulating paralysis on both your team and the enemy team. She's very versatile, and you'll often see her in a lot of farming setups, so if you have her, definitely recommended that you use her. Eirin is capable of moon breaking and inflicting poison, which can be helpful depending on who's on your team. Furthermore, her last word does a ton of mixed damage, so you can use her to push the damage that you need for your team. A very strong option is A8 Reisen. It's heavily recommended you use her if you have her, really. Each of her spell cards deals 3 moon at only 1 boost, and her last word is the same, but it's AoE. She's able to buff agility and benefits from being paralyzed, so she pairs great with Iku. You'll see her in a bunch of farm setups, and for a very good reason. A6 Sakuya is also an incredibly powerful choice. She has access to AoE moon spell cards, and she provides a lot of unit support. She'll do great on your team if you have her. The first of the last two we'll be looking at is Sagumin. She has access to a ton of moon, and she's capable of huge Yang setup and support. She even has AoE moon on her spread shot at only 1 boost, so if you're looking for damage and support, she's a great choice. Finally, we have Suika. While she doesn't boast a lot of moon break, she does provide a lot of support with survivability, accuracy, and yin attack. Her first spell card can help push damage, and her last word is AoE moon and drops defense. For the last section, we'll be discussing tanks. Like I said before, this isn't really necessary at all if you have good planning and enough damage and breaks, but for those of you who are new, I would consider taking at least one of these two since they double as doing damage for the team. First, we'll consider Reimu. Like Youmu, if you are new or you don't have a ton of units, then there's a really good chance you're going to be using her. She can be used to tank the second phase of the fight, provide some support options, and do a large amount of damage. A limited alternative is Yukari. Unlike Reimu, Yukari can self-heal and provide barrier to the team, making her a really strong choice for trying to stay alive until your cooldowns come back. Like Reimu, her last word also does a ton of AoE damage, so if you really do need a tank, then she's a good choice. Now, before we move on, I know what you're thinking. You didn't list any Ultra Festival units. Well, for this, I didn't really decide that I wanted to have them in, but in case you're curious, almost any single Ultra Friend can be used as good damage for the team, but particularly the two that you should especially note is the B3 Yorihime and the B3 Sakuya. Yorihime is extremely broken for this event. Not only does she provide a ton of support, but her last word is 6 ticks of AoE moon damage, and it's capable of doing a phase entirely on its own without even breaking, and we'll demonstrate that later. Sakuya also has access to a ton of moon in her kit, and her last word does an incredible amount of solo damage, which is perfect for the last phase. Well, that's it for the units. I'm sure y'all are done hearing me talk about this theory. Let's get into the information that matters, and that's some example clears. Alright, let's get right into the magic. So for this clear, we're going to be using just A7 Youmu as our only limited character, and neither Reimu or Youmu is going to be Fantasy Rebirth. So this is going to be a cheap clear, hopefully the unit's available to a lot of people. Now, a lot of these spell cards we're going to be using don't really matter. The Minoriko cards don't really matter, the medicine cards don't really matter. The last word cards are important on the other 4. And for any of these clears, don't worry if you don't have the event cards. A lot of them are just stat sticks, so feel free to replace them if you need to. The only one that matters is the Moria Anniversary, and the unbinds don't matter. So if you didn't unbind your Moria Anniversary and you kept a bunch of copies because a sane person would, then that's perfectly fine. So we're gonna open up here, we're gonna paralyze, and then we're gonna swap out our Youmu and our medicine. We're gonna activate our poison, and then we're going to start doing some setup here on our A7 Youmu. I'm going to wait for a bit more poison to get down. So the plan here is to have the A7 Youmu break the first phase. So we're going to take a few turns of setup. Iku will be broken on this next round. So we do the Minoriko boost spell card to break the paralysis that the Reisen put down earlier. We're going to take a bit of damage. I like to barrier twice on medicine here since I have some barrier restore cards, and sometimes the rabbits can just do a ton of damage to medicine. We're going to activate these 2 skills specifically on Youmu for the cooldown to show up later. Then we're going to activate the second spell card. This spell card needs to be set up. So Ordinary Magician is the one that we're using here. Really any setup card should be good enough. We're going to activate our Moria Anniversary here just for a little bit of crit def down. To be honest, if your setup is exactly the same, the damage probably isn't necessary. PCB Youmu probably has it. So don't worry if you don't have it. We'll use Minoriko to finish off the poison. Not every rabbit will break here, but in this case it did happen, so lucky us. We're going to max boost on Youmu. We don't need to graze at all. This will kill regardless. We're going to pop a couple skills on Minoriko, pop our last skill on our Youmu. We're going to swap Reimu out. And Reimu and Medicine are just going to sit around while Youmu takes care of this phase. Now, for this next phase, which is the hard one for a lot of people, the one you need to tank, we already have Reimu in, so not a problem. We're going to activate our defensive skills. And we're gonna double boost on Reimu once, and we're gonna activate one of our spell cards. And then after this, we're not gonna be using any spell cards on her for a while. This is just so that we can easily tank through this section. Iku did the ball there, which is the preferred outcome. If she swipes, your Yomu's gonna have a little bit less barrier, your Medicine's gonna have a little bit less barrier. So thankfully, she did the ball. So Medicine's gonna start activating poison again now. Since we've been sitting around for a while, we're getting our cooldowns back. Yomu's gonna just sit around. Everyone's gonna barrier this first spell card, the drill. And Medicine's gonna activate her first spell card here. Now, when you're doing medicine spell cards, you need to make sure that you do the solo one first and then the all one if you're trying to go for a poison setup, because the solo poison lasts for 3 turns and the all poison only lasts for 2. So if you're going for a 3-turn break, that's the ordering that you need to do, which is what we are doing here. So, didn't take a lot of damage, pretty good, a little bit of poison damage. We're going to activate our last poison, both the Youmu skills get popped, and then we swap. So this transfers a huge attack link buff onto our original Youmu, and we're going to be using this and a couple of turns of setup to be able to use her to take care of this phase by herself. It's just a huge amount of setup. Everyone's going to barrier. The medicine barriers don't really matter at this point because she's about to swap out once she last words. We're not going to see her again. So a little bit of setup on Youmu, a little bit more poison on medicine. This next turn we're going to be doing the break. No damage, a little bit of damage, and some more poison damage going out. So we're gonna do one more setup. We're using Magic Prep as our setup here, so hopefully a cheap option that a lot of you guys have. And like I said, barrier doesn't matter on medicine. This won't break the rabbits, it's only gonna break Iku, which is why we're burying, just in case the rabbits decide to choose violence. But they probably won't kill there unless medicine is very low on HP for some reason. Now we're going to double boost the ceiling circle here. This is important because it reduces defenses. And this is part of the reasons why we said earlier that Reimu is a good support. We're going to max boost, max graze, activate skill on Youmu. And we're going to try and go for the phase here. We're going to swap Minoriko in. We're going to swap Reisen in. We're going to activate a couple of racing skills just to provide a little bit more support, and then we're going to click an unboosted discarder, and we're hoping that Youmu is able to take care of this phase here. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this last phase, you saw that she got the invasion buff here, so this phase is usually hard to deal with accuracy-wise. We're going to stall for a very long period of time. So thankfully we got some barrier back from one of the rabbits. We're going to be sitting around for a while, because what we're going to do is we're going to cycle both her spell cards, her poison heal, not poison heal, her anomaly heal spell card, and her barrier restore spell card before we start trying to bake her. We're also doing this because we need to wait for cooldowns, because Reisen doesn't have any for cooldowns, so we're going to wait for a bit. So we just barrier this, and we're going to keep on burying on everybody because we don't want to risk anybody dying. So this is for consistency. So every turn, everybody's going to barrier. Last turn also, you saw that the Minoriko restored barriers. Thankfully, we got lucky. So we're going to be able to keep everybody out just a little bit longer. And we need to stall one more turn here before we start trying to break. Alright, perfect. So we're now going to swap out our Youmu. So we're going to transfer some buffs over. It's pretty minor, but every bit of damage helps when your units don't have rebirth or don't have everything that you want on them. So again, barrier with everybody because Iku will not break on this turn. We're going to let this go off, and then we're going to click Illusionary Blast, the Reisen focus, so that we can hopefully get one break, and we got it. Very nice. And Yomu's going to start setting up Spirit Power because she's going to need to max boost one of her skills later. So now we're going to start clicking some spell cards. Minoriko's going to do her last word to break the 2 ticks of Reisen Poison, and Reisen is going to click on the focus again for one more break. This is for consistency. Technically, we're going to be going one break over, but just in case if we miss something, this will make it so that it's more consistent clear. Now, we're gonna swap Reimu in. We're gonna start doing our setup. So first we're gonna click our first spell card, and Reisen is gonna start going for the breaks. So first we're gonna click the Spirit Power one. So we're clicking focus here because sometimes Iku will opt to drill a bad target. Particularly, she'll opt to drill Reisen, and Reisen's going to be out of barrier, so we can't barrier to remove the blind. So we very particularly want this to go onto Reimu. Technically, the Yang defense only lasts for a couple turns, so it won't be there for the last word. We're gonna hope that we have enough Yang defense anyway, that we max on Yang defense despite that. So this is the break turn. We're gonna go ahead and max boost focus shot on Youmu to fish for some crit defense downs, and then we're going to double boost our ceiling circle again to fish for some Yang and Yin defense downs. Now, both Reimu and Reisen are using setup story cards, and we did get some defense. That one didn't go. That's fine. We're gonna go ahead and click the rest of our remaining skills. This will provide Reimu with some Yang defense, and we're gonna go ahead, just go all out, click everything. We're gonna hope it kills. The CP's looking pretty good on these, so I'm feeling that this one will be a clear. 51, 510,000 plus. Yep, that's enough damage. So awesome, we got that clear. Obviously, this clear isn't consistent as it is right now, but with some fancy rebirths, this one does become consistent. Alright, moving right into the next one. So this one features a few different limited characters. It's got Yukari, the AA Reisen, and Eirin. Now this clear, very consistent. This one you can use to farm if 74 cost farming is something that you find appealing, which I'm sure it's not. Like I said before, a couple of the story cards here don't matter, particularly the Yukari ones mostly don't matter. The Mesa ones don't matter. The last words on everybody else and the Yukari is very important. You're just trying to maximize the damage. So let's move right into it. And also about the story cards again, none of these will ever require that you have a maxed out story card, max limit broken, or multiple copies of an event story card. So don't worry about any of that. So we're gonna open up. We're gonna start by boosting one of Reisen's spell cards and building some spirit power on Eirin. Unlike the last clear, we're not going to be burying on everybody because we're confident that Yukari reduces the damage enough so that everybody takes barely any damage. Also, we are not boosting a spell card on Reisen. We are boosting the spread shot. That is my bad. So on this turn, we're going to bury her because this is the drill turn and we don't want any accidents to happen. A little bit more spell card clicking, just more setup. A little bit of poison. The drill goes on to Yukari, that's fine. So this demonstrates a lot about how much damage you can reduce using tanks, allowing you to go for really long setups. So again, we're going to click another boosted focus shot. We're going to click a train, and we're going to click one more spell card on Eirin. So this, as you can see, very slow setup, very slow break. But this is all possible because of what Yukari does. Now, thankfully, if you break Iku on the turn that she's doing a spell card, she doesn't keep the charge and she doesn't keep the cycle. So by breaking her here, we force her into the second spell card as opposed to the going on to the last one, which would regenerate her barrier. So we're gonna go ahead and activate everything here. We're gonna go for some big damage. We're gonna click train, and we're gonna go ahead and click our Eirin last word. So this will provide the breaks on everybody, and one Reisen spell card to push some damage. And we're gonna click train to push a solid 10,000, I think. Oh, 12,000, that's pretty good. So both the rabbits activate. Iku has not activated yet, which this is planned. So the rabbits don't actually all activate there. It's kind of random which rabbits activate. But we're gonna go ahead, max boost out another Reisen attack, and here we're gonna demonstrate the damage that Yukari is capable of doing. So I'm sure y'all didn't believe me earlier when I said, oh, Yukari does damage. Yes, she does enough for us to be able to push this first phase. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and phase Iku, going on to the next phase. We're gonna focus up to tank this first part. Yukari can receive a break here, but there's not much that we can do about it. There's no barriering, yeah, so it happens there. Minimal damage. Yukari is very, very tanky. So we're gonna go ahead, keep on stalling. Gonna keep on clicking some one boosted spread shots to get some break in. So on this turn she does the small disco. So this works thankfully because Iku doesn't keep her rotation if you break her out of it or something. So small disco doesn't restore any barrier. So we're gonna keep on going. Click another one boost focus shot. I'm gonna go ahead and restore barrier, and then we're gonna take this one solidly. So really slow, really easy. Gonna go ahead, bring medicine on in. We're gonna start setting up a little bit to finish off this break. So it's very slow. Obviously, when you're doing farming, you don't always want to have setups that take, I think this one is like 15 turns, which is alright, but that does take a while. So, but for those of you who are just looking for a clear, just note that you can do it like this. It is perfectly viable to sit around and just set up and take your time breaking so that you can focus on pushing the damage when it matters. So we're gonna swap Reimu in here, activate both our defensive spells, go for a little bit of survivability, click an unboosted ceiling circle. We're gonna activate our poison here, and we're gonna go ahead on this turn and go for the last word. So this will secure our break on Iku. And we're gonna go ahead and start pushing damage into her with Reisen with a couple more spell cards. This also demonstrates how powerful the Reisen is, the AA Reisen. A lot of moon breaks, a lot of damage on her normal spell cards. If you aren't able to meet the damage threshold with the team that you have, a lot of the times you'll have to consider trying to push damage with just spell cards. It's what I found with doing, especially this run and the other one. Sometimes you can't be using the last words. Sometimes you have to try and push the damage with a spell card. So we last worded on the A8 Reisen, so we're gonna bring normal Reisen in. We're gonna click a couple barriers. Normal Reisen is almost completely safe against Iku normal attacks, even on this last phase here. So we are not worried about it at all. With the Reimu, of course, in this situation. So we're gonna go for a couple more breaks, stall a couple more turns because she's doing the barrier restore here. And then after this, we're gonna go ahead and start our breaking and starting our setup. So Illusionary Blast always goes after because the last word is a spell card, so it'll go first. So that's how you're able to maintain one break on Iku. So after that, we're gonna protect everybody. We're gonna start going for our setup, build some spirit power on Reisen. We're gonna go ahead and click one Fantasy Nature on Reimu. I'm gonna click that stuff. And Medicine is just gonna sit around. She doesn't do much. She doesn't do much for a bit. So that'll provide 2 breaks, 1 setup. And what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna go to demonstrate how Medicine and Reisen can work together. So we're gonna go for a discarder break, discarder poison break. So discarder only breaks 3, and you see Iku here has 4 left. But as you saw last turn, Medicine has her skills up. So we're gonna go ahead and break here. And Reimu's gonna click her step card. We're setting up with waiting and comfort, so that one is +2 at Yang attack, +2 Yang defense. 4-star, but it's a newer one, so maybe you don't have it. Don't worry, it's not that important. So you see, discard or lands, we get the full break. We go for our setup, and then we're gonna use our last words on both our Reimu and our Reisen to try and finish off this fight. And like I said, this one is consistent, so I have no doubts in my mind that the damage is going to be there on this one. So let's just see. Eirin doesn't do anything here. She's just like, what's up? So 38, it's pretty low, and that's enough. So, yep, this one's good. Like I said, it's consistent, so you can use it for farming. I wouldn't because it's like 74, but it's possible. And hopefully that demonstrates just one more clear for you. Alright, we got the clear for you whales out there. Well, not really. It's only one Ultra Festival unit, but this is a farming setup. Now, just know, there are a ton of optimal farm setups for this stage, so there's no need to use only this one. You can look up online. There's tons of posts that you can use to reference to use exactly the cards that you need or the units that you need. So for this one, we're going to open up. We're going to activate practically every skill we have except for 2 of them. And we're going to start pushing damage immediately. So with Reisen, we're going to go ahead and click our Overwhelming Firepower spell card. On B3 Yorihime, we're going to try and get 1 break with a double boosted AoE. And then Eirin is just going to click her setup because Eirin is going to be the one who's last wording next turn. +1 break. So this is essential because it gives us enough breaks on Iku for the last word to kill, the Eirin last word. This will put her at 2. So again, we're going to just push some more damage. We're going to activate that skill on Eirin. Push more damage on Reisen. We're going to start setting up on Yorihime because she's going to kill next turn with the last word. So here goes the Eirin last word. Like I said, this one is consistent. It fails very rarely. So confident that this damage is good enough. Now earlier when I was talking about Yorihime and I said that she was really silly, the fact of the matter is she is. So I don't have any boosts. I just have 1 skill that I'm using here. Or not boosts, I don't have any grazes. I'm only boosting twice. Only using 1 skill, and without breaking, she's going to be able to do this whole phase by herself. So they didn't break at all. Iku is completely unbroken. It just does 5 million damage with just that. Obviously that number goes way higher. So now we're going to take a couple turns to finish this out. We saved 2 Reisen spell cards, so that'll be enough to push us over to break Iku before we use our Reisen last word. So we're going to activate our first one. A little bit of accuracy helps to make sure that we get those breaks. Also, we had accuracy on the Yorihime's last word. Go ahead, start activating skills. This will provide us a lot of support for when the last word goes off. I'm going to click 1 more, and this one will break. We're setting up with crit accuracy this time around. Peach picking princess. And we're going to barrier. This is for consistency. Occasionally the Iku doesn't get broken because misses the moon breaks. And sometimes she just drills somebody. So this is for consistency. And then we're going to finish it off. Click our blind skill, max boost, last word. And Kaneki's just going to triple boost to provide support. And that'll kill. Like I said, there's a ton of optimal routes for this that are even cheaper than this one. Some that use different Ultra Festivals, so I encourage you guys to go and check it out. But this is just an example of a potential farming clear. Well, that will do it for the guide for the Moon EX stage. I know it was long. Hopefully you didn't have to watch all of that. You just skipped to the parts that you needed. But thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you so much to Gamepress for being able to give us the opportunity to do this. Everybody go check out their website. They post a bunch of helpful information on Touhou LostWord, and they're always working to stay connected with the community and with the developers. So please go check them out. And thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.